So I mentioned before we started the show, we have Steve Moore joining us. Steve Moore is on the phone today. He is he's been on the show many times. Most people of my listeners will recognize his name. He's an economist, a previous very close advisor of President Trump, helping him come up with his plan for America, his economic plan. He is went with the Wall Street Journal, the Heritage Foundation. He's currently on leave as an economist from the Heritage Foundation to work on the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. I even love the name, Committee to Unleash Prosperity. And they, as I've mentioned to you in the past, they put out a great email. You ought to get on their list if you're not. Get on their email and understand what they're trying to do and spreading a little bit of truth about where we are in this country, contrasted with what you read in the media all the time. So I believe we have Steve Moore on the phone.
You do. Good to be with you. For having me.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for joining us. Well, I got to tell you, I really, really commend you on this Unleash Prosperity thing. It's just a great, I noticed on issue 119, this is a dated, yeah, it's wonderful. So
well, thank you. And if people want to get it, it's free. All you have to do is just go to the Committee to Unleash Prosperity website and just click a button and send us your email. We'll send it out every morning. And, we've gotten great response. Newt Gingrich and a lot of the members of Congress and the governors are using it, and even a lot of my friends at the White House are finding it to be a really good, useful guide. You can read it in 5 or 10 minutes. It's just something that comes out really, just really short items that will kind of make your eyes burst out of your head when you see the stupid things liberals are doing.
Well, that's for sure. Well, there are a bunch of great things in this issue, but I want to talk about one. We've talked about this in the past, but you have something in the recent issue of Unleash Prosperity. It was entitled COVID Deaths Resume Decline, and of course, the media pays no attention. Honestly, and I will tell you, I'm sure you've noticed this too, Steve, you're out in public sometime and it seems like you see a lot of people trying to get back to normal, feeling pretty healthy, just kind of moving forward in life. And you have other people huddled in fear, and it kind of depends what they read. And I think that there are not enough Americans recognizing how well we're doing with COVID. So would you give a little bit of update about how well we're doing in this country with COVID?
Well, this is a national scandal, really, that the media and the government is not reporting on the amazing news. I mean, if you turn on the TV news, or you listen to the radio, or look at the newspapers, you'd think we've got a plague that's descended upon us that is not going away. And in fact, we've seen dramatic reductions in death rates. We've seen dramatic reductions in hospitalizations. Even the percentage of people that are testing positive is going down, down, down. And yet most people on the street think it's getting worse, not better. And that's because the media and the government are just not giving people the real data. There is no reason. You and I talked about this the last time I was on. It's one of the greatest scandals of all time is that our schools are closed. That is outrageous. Kids under the age of 25 do not get sick from coronavirus, and they certainly don't die. Your child is more likely to die from a bolt of lightning than from coronavirus, unless they have other health problems. But for healthy children not to be in schools, I find it to be reprehensible. This is now almost a full year that children are going without schooling, and that does real damage to their economic and their educational and social development.
Absolutely does. I'm glad you mentioned the schooling. We had a doctor from Texas on the show last week, Dr. Richard Bartlett, running through a great deal of data, basically making the same argument. There's no reason kids shouldn't be in school. And yet we have Americans paralyzed by fear. And the detriment to the kids is not just that they miss learning the multiplication tables or something like that. It's far more serious. It is a shutting down of social life, as normal engagement. For many kids, it's just it's a cutting off from normal life.
It is. And I was just reading some statistics about third grade reading. Third grade, aptitude for reading, and the numbers are just so depressing. Only half of kids in the United States are at grade level on reading. But the point that this study makes, which is really important, is that if you miss a year of school, you're behind, and you can't. It's hard to catch up when you lose that. And they were showing that third grade, if you're able to read at third grade, that affects your when by the time you're a teenager, and it even is correlated with your earnings when you when you graduate from school. So, we having these kids at home and online learning just isn't working for the majority of kids. It works for some kids, but the majority of them it doesn't. And so, the fact is we should be opening up our economy. That's what, our Committee on Unleash Prosperity has been about, is we got to get things up and running, get people back to work, get businesses back on their feet. And we're doing that, by the way. There's another thing that the media isn't reporting on. We've created 10.5 million jobs in the last 4 months. 10.5 million jobs. That's by far the biggest record job gain. Now, we lost 20 million, during the spring when we shut down the economy, but nobody thought we'd see this snapback. And it's because of Donald Trump's policies, and that's why nobody in the media wants to report on this. And by the way, if you want coronavirus to go away, then just vote for Joe Biden, because the day after he's elected president, I guarantee you, they'll say, coronavirus, what's that? We never heard of coronavirus.
Oh, you're right. That'll be last year's news. Coronavirus is gone. Well, you kind of jumped out of my next topic, which was there were some great economic numbers, which again, you have to try to find them in the news. But what are the policies? What is Trump doing in the midst of this coronavirus mess to help bring the economy back? Because he definitely is. What's he been doing that's accomplished this?
Well, first of all, the big news that came out last week that should have really been underneath the headline about the better, improving news on coronavirus. The second, lead item should have been the fact that we got the Census Bureau reported on incomes and poverty levels of American families. And that's the gold standard of reports that comes out every year. And they found the biggest gains in incomes in like 30 years. I mean, median household income, that's the people exactly in the middle of the income. I'm not talking about rich people. I'm talking about the exact middle class. Their incomes in 3 years under Donald Trump has gone up by over $6,500. The average family gained more income in 3 years under Trump than 8 years under Obama's policies. So naturally, the Democrats want to go back to Obama's policies. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's exactly what they want to do.
Well, those are the numbers. I actually have a report in front of me, and you're very good at speaking of numbers so quickly and fluidly. I have them in front of me, and I probably won't do as nearly as persuasive a job, but it's an astonishing thing to think about. The party on the left that says they care so much about the poor, so much about minorities, but when you have great numbers that should be making people realize, oh my gosh, this is really great, we can't even celebrate them. And you talk about the poverty rate lower. I'm reading from a different piece that you were quoting them, but poverty rate in the United States in 2019 lower than had been at any time since they started measuring it.
Ever, yeah. It goes back to the official statistics go back to 1959, but obviously before that we had higher poverty than we do have today. So the lowest poverty rate ever in the United States. That's an amazing thing to think about. And by the way, that poverty rate has gone down for Hispanics, blacks, Asians, women, whatever group you want to talk about. It's all good. Now, of course, 2020, this is all pre-coronavirus. But what it does prove is, hey, if you want a roaring economy, cut taxes, reduce regulation, promote American energy, get better trade deals to bring jobs back to the United States. Trump did all those things. And it's been, and the media is honoring, oh, nothing really happened. What are they talking about? This was an incredible boom. And now we got Trump getting the economy back at a pace that nobody thought was possible, even me. And I'm a big optimist. I never thought we'd be where we are today. And it's because Trump is continuing to promote pro-business policies. And that's the difference. I mean, this election is about somebody who's been in politics for, 40 or 50 years, and somebody who's been in business for 40 or 50 years. Ladies and gentlemen, who do you think can handle the economy better? Come on.
Very good point. I want to jump into something that's been a lot in the news and a lot of noise made by the left about this. And the argument is that President Trump is somehow he's surreptitiously or he's moving toward cutting Medicare, cutting Social Security. He's got a scheme going on that there was a temporary change made this year to help because of COVID. But the plan really is he's going to cut everything. Could you please set the record straight?
Well, this was my proposal, actually, so I take it personally. I mean, we developed policy for Trump that would give payroll tax relief for every single worker working in America and every small business, and that would have been hugely beneficial for the economy. And Nancy Pelosi said, no, I don't want to do that. That's not going to help. And then we went back, 8 or 9 years ago when Obama was president. He cut the payroll tax. And back then she said it's the best thing we can possibly do for working class Americans. And now she's saying she doesn't want to do it because she doesn't want to help the economy. I mean, that's an important thing to realize. Democrats are trying to do everything they can to sabotage the economy so that they can take over and then take credit for, supposedly resurrecting it. And, we ought to cut the payroll tax. And this is such a fallacious argument. Everyone knows that Donald Trump ran on not touching Social Security and Medicare. He is not going to, what's the old, the ads the Democrats used to run of, Granny in the
wheelchair.
Wheelchair over the cliff.
Yep.
That isn't going to happen. Trump is not going to cut these programs. I don't care how many times the Democrats say it.
Absolutely true. And it is the craziest thing to argue this president, whose base, those voters, the recipients, they're people who are more traditionally conservative. They're his voters. It's just absurd. I want to ask you, though, this is kind of back to where we are in the economy and COVID and how much governors are shutting things down. If you take these three big states I want to mention, California, Illinois, and New York, and they're slow rolling coming out of the COVID restrictions, slow rolling, opening the economy. Don't those three states together, aren't they just doing, can you calibrate what is the damage they're doing to the overall economic numbers by their slow rolling coming back to life?
Well, these blue states, are the ones, the blue states being the states with Democratic governors and Democratic legislatures, those are the states that have the worst economies, right? So just look at those numbers. The highest unemployment rates are in California, in New York, in New Jersey, in Connecticut, in Massachusetts. Now, Massachusetts has a Republican governor, but he's a rhino. He's a liberal Republican. So I don't count him as a Republican.
Yeah.
But all of the blue states are getting crushed. They're getting crushed, their economy. And now they want the federal government, they want states like Texas and Tennessee and Georgia and Arizona and Idaho and Utah to pay for their bills. And people in Texas and Tennessee and Utah should say, hell no. If you've got these big, fat government programs in Illinois and California and New Jersey and New York, and you want to lock down your economy, you're welcome to do it, but don't come to Washington and cry for more money. So that's a big deal right now, by the way, because as we speak, Nancy Pelosi is trying to get a new budget deal that would include a $500 billion blue state bailout. And I hope, people in Texas, tell their congressmen and senators, hell no. It's not fair for people in Texas to pay for the, incompetent leadership in New York and Illinois.
I could not agree more, and I would love to have more Republicans speaking up about this, just the unfairness of it, because what Nancy Pelosi is really trying to do is say all of America should pay for bad economic policy that Democrats embrace. Yeah. Go ahead.
It's worse than that because we would be, there's an word, like when you have a spoiled child that misbehaves, it's called enabling. And you never want to enable bad behavior, right? And that's, if we give a bailout to California, New York, and New Jersey, and Illinois, we're just enabling them. We're enabling the governors to keep their economies shut down and their stores and businesses shut down and their workers in unemployment lines. Well, we don't want to do that. We don't want to enable bad behavior. And of course, that's why Nancy Pelosi of California and Chuck Schumer, of course, from New York, want the bailout money for their states.
Yeah. And the other thing it enables, and I think we've talked about this in the past, but it enables voters in that state, in those big blue states, to never connect dots. If they keep,
they're going to pay it back.
Yeah.
They're never going to pay that money back. Of course they won't.
Yeah, but there's, like California voters, because I know some of them have talked about, that it works, everything's working fine here. You can do everything our state does. The sun still comes up in the morning, I still go to work. I mean, they never see a consequence for the policies they back. And if Washington bails out, those voters still never figure out. They don't connect the dots. They don't connect the dots between the policies they vote for and what's happening to their states.
Well, it's important. This is all important because, look, this is a big election we have coming up. And basically the Democrats are saying, hey, let's have the blue state policies for the whole country. And we're saying, no, let's have the red state policies for the rest of the country. And now we say, okay, well, which works better, red state policies or blue state policies? And then you look at all the blue states, they have the highest death rates from coronavirus. They have the highest crime rates. They have the most riots. And they are the ones with the economies that have crumbled. And the red states are actually doing pretty well. And so why would we want to make America look more like New York and Illinois and New Jersey? I mean, that's just stupid, right? We want to make America follow the policies that actually work and those are the states of, I know that, Texas doesn't always get it right, but it does it pretty well. You have no income tax, and you have low taxes and low regulation, and the same thing with Florida, and same thing with Georgia, and same, Utah. We rate Utah as the state with the best economic policies. Texas is number 4 on our list, but those states do it right, and they create all the jobs. Texas and Tennessee and Arizona and Florida are bringing in about 3,000 people every day from other blue states. So why are people leaving blue states if blue state policies work so well?
It's a very good question indeed. This organization you're working with now, Committee to Unleash Prosperity, when you first got going, I thought it was entirely focused on the dealing with COVID and trying to convince people that we needed to open the economies, and we couldn't keep it. But you cover so many great issues in this. One of them you uncovered. Thanks. Oh, I love it. One of them you uncovered, which I had not focused on, but you're taking a look at Joe Biden, our Democrat presidential candidate, and you had his talking about more money he's going to spend. You're reviewing some of the money he wants to spend, but you exposed some. I had not heard about this. People always wonder, are the Democrats ever going to find a program they don't like? And he actually found one. The Biden economic plan proposes to end the federally funded Opportunity Scholarship Program in Washington. Can you talk about that?
It makes me sick, actually. I'm sick about this because I live in Washington, D.C., and I've seen the thousands and thousands of Black and Hispanic and low-income parents who've benefited from this program. It's a voucher program so that kids can get out of the miserable, and dangerous government-run schools in that city and go to schools that work, whether they're Catholic schools or private schools or Jewish schools or Montessori schools or home schools. And it's worked. The program's worked so well. And, to see these Black, oftentimes single mothers, they're so proud of their kids when they graduate from these schools, and many of them go on to college. It's been an amazing thing. And so we do this. It costs about $20 million a year for something like 2,000 or 3,000 kids a year. That's the program that Joe Biden wants to get rid of. The one program that actually works and is helping Black parents, and they're calling, by the way, Biden is calling Donald Trump a racist. Trump loves this program. He wants Black kids and Black families to succeed. And this is just further evidence that all the Democrats care about is the teachers' unions. That's all they care about. They don't care about kids. They don't care about minorities. They don't care about the middle class. They just care about power. They care about trial lawyers and teachers' unions and people who give them money. And so, let's not be naive and think, liberals, they really care. The Democrats care about people and working class people. No, they don't. They just care about the people who give them money. And that's why they're putting the teachers' unions ahead of these very poor minority parents and kids. And I'm sickened by it. I think it's disgusting.
Oh, I'm sickened by it too. It's a great word. It is so deeply upsetting, and especially because there's been such a great movement in our country to encourage families and individuals to support school choice so that more kids have figured out a way they can get a great public school education. And yet this fabulous idea, this Opportunity Scholarship Program, which you say it's real life, on the ground success, real life families, and you can see the track record. And I think, Steve, our problem is we just aren't as good, I don't know what the right word is for our side, not as good marketers or exploiters of ideas, because if the roles are reversed and the conservatives were going to be cutting funding to a great program like this, you would have racist in the headline of every story about it.
Well, of course. It's called the double standard. And what's the old saying? If it weren't for double standards, liberals would have no standards at all. And, I'm just so upset about this. But I have to go run and pick up my kid from school, speaking of schooling. So it's been just a fabulous to be with you. And, I can't wait to talk to you after the election when Donald Trump wins a smashing victory, because I really think he is. The American people see what hypocrites the liberals are, and we don't want to make America look like New York City or, what's happening in Minnesota or these other states. All right. Well, have a great one. Thank you for having me.
Great talking to you. Thank you, sir. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, I tell you, folks, you should get these daily emails. They're full of gems like this. That was Steve Moore, fabulous economist, thinker, writer, and he actually, the reason I love having him on, he can take pretty complex ideas and make them sound really simple. But his Unleash Prosperity organization and newsletter putting out all sorts of arguments and just facts and data. as I started to tell you, one of the main reasons it got going was to try to help America think about the idea that we had this massive injury to our economy, just massive hit to our economy from the shutdown from COVID. And it was trying to make the argument that as we move forward, we have to take into consideration in making policy going forward, not just all of the data just coming from the medical community, but policy surrounding how we deal with COVID should involve input from economists, from people who are aware of family dynamics, family counselors, social workers, psychiatrists, psychologists. We should be looking at the whole picture of America before we do such a massive shutdown again. But they have. Unleashed Prosperity has really evolved into a great, really just an excellent source of information on COVID and on how, as the numbers get better and the hospitalization rate goes down and the death rate goes down, everything's going great in COVID. But you wouldn't know it if you just read mainstream media. You would think we were still in the middle of the bubonic plague.